Oh yes, he's back, and he's about to transform into Change-adryan to lead this Tzeentch army against a faction where Change-adryan should be a little bit better, and I've also kind of tweaked the build. If you haven't seen my last video, this is, yeah, the Changeling into Change-adryan for Tzeentch Lord. And there's some direct synergy here, which I have talked about in comments and other places, but yeah, Marauder Horseman of Tzeentch, of course. Well, let's back up. The Changeling, as you can see momentarily, will have fire damage plus anti-large armor piercing as Change-adryan, and he also has the infantry heal, right? That's sort of the initial thought I had, is I'm going to heal up the Severed Claw. The halberds are very good against Norsca, as is fire damage, which he will have, so let's augment that as much as possible. I've got Lore of Fire here, and in particular this Cascading Fire Cloak Fireball combo. You can just pop off like crazy to get extra fire damage. The Cultist of Tzeentch, if you didn't know, also has this really good item called the Wand of Whimsy, which gives plus 12 melee attack and base weapon damage. Doesn't matter that much, but plus 12 melee attack map-wide every time you cast a spell. Whoa, nice combination to have these two together. We also put him up on the shrine, so he gets a bit of extra spell mastery, and I took Burning Head just in case I need to clear out like a bunch of berserkers or something else scary. Yeah, and then the rest of the army here, we've got some blue horrors of Tzeentch. We've got some marauders as well. Forsaken out on the flanks, one marauder spear respectfully in the back, and some marauder horsemen. Back to them. Of course, they've got Warp Flame Contact effect on their javelins, which means they're going to give additional weakness to fire when they hit something. So, yeah, if Change-adryan has to fight something big and scary in particular, as long as I can pull up with those javelins, apply some weakness to fire, cast some spells, going to be in for a good time. My opponent here, Tactical Itch, has gone with quite an interesting build. He's got a couple of Famir Warriors, the anti-infantry variants, so should be pretty good against a lot of what I have here. The Severed Claw might be the only thing that can actually stop them from an infantry standpoint. Backed up by the Famir Noble, who I don't think I've actually talked about too much. He's a solid enough brawler, melee hero. He's got anti-large now. I don't know if he actually did before. But yeah, he's decent overall. Doesn't have the self-healing, but has pretty good missile resistance, including this additional passive missile resistance. Yeah, affects allies in range, so it'll give other units a little bit of extra melee defense, and especially when synergizing with Famir, get these two for a pretty stout 60% missile resistance between their Hide from the Mist passive and where's the rest of it coming from? I guess they have some base missile resistance as well that's being stacked on top of there. But yeah, you can see the javelins are going to do essentially no damage to them. You've also got a Skinwolf Werekin as well, some Marauder Horsemen, regular Marauders, Metal Mammoth, one of my favorite new lords as well, and some Marauder Horsemen more over here, Beast of Tashnar as well. So it should be a pretty interesting one. The blues are going to be just absolutely butter to the hot knife of Famir in particular with their magic damage and anti-infantry. Armor Sundering won't matter so much, but yeah, they can cut through blues like it's absolutely nothing, so I'm honestly a little bit scared. Change-adryan lagging a little bit behind his Severed Claw bodyguard. But, you know, why not just throw in the Forsaken here? They have a little bit better chance of surviving very slightly. We're also going to throw a Cascading Fire Cloak on them to put them up to 44 melee defense. Try and mitigate some of that damage that's coming in. Yeah, the Javelins throwing in here as well. Change-adryan and the Severed Claw trying to get into combat. They are dragging down a few of the Famir that get caught up in the back there. Meanwhile, the rest of the army, we're getting some Marauders on Marauders out here. The Marauders of Tzeentch getting kited around. The Norscan Warhounds, Beast of Tashnar, also managed to get tangled up with the Forsaken there. And the Forsaken definitely winning that trade initially. But a nice Searing Doom being called down by the Metal Mammoth. He's going to come in and start stomping on some infantry. Definitely going to be pain and suffering if you are a Tzeentch Marauder in particular, but the Severed Claw should be just fine. Change-adryan also can pop his Faint and Riposte, Colossal Strike for at least one hit before the Mammoth does the thing that is the main of all halberds, which is walking in the other direction. Very good tactical play. And a really nice Burning Head for me on those Marauders, trying to desperately save these blue horrors here. And the Cultist also moving in to try and maybe body block the Shaman. Don't necessarily expect him to win that, but maybe trying to bait him into fighting back. Well, I can get my halberds over there. Not going to be so lucky, and the Marauder Horsemen also. Not really helping to apply any contact effect right now as they're being chased out in the open field, but yeah, I mean, ultimately, if I can get this Marauder Horseman separated, there is just one of them, so I can charge with all three of mine. I should be able to win there, which is exactly what we're going to do, as the Famir are lagging a little bit behind. And in the infantry fight, I mean, even without the Famir, the Blues don't really stand much of a chance in a proper melee combat here. Getting pretty well destroyed, and some nice Searing Dooms helping to deal with my Marauders as well. So even though he didn't really take any elite infantry of his own, he is kind of trading the infantry fight pretty respectably. Great Shaman also going to come stomp the Famir over on the far side, where the Halberds are not, again, using the time-honored tactic of going to the place other than the Halberds. But hey, it's at least it's you know, conquest, so I'm like, okay, it's pretty early to just go full point stand at, but might as well just get on it and start accruing some points here, just in case. We never know, it might come down to me being cycle charged to death with halberds, and if that's the case, I want to make sure I have as much points as possible in that. Here the Blues are going to get caught. They've used all their ammo up at this point, but they're going to add a nice little speed bump to those Famirs. They try and get back to this main area here. Likewise, my Forsaken doing an okay job, doing some damage, but ultimately being dragged down, as the Cultist also kind of applies some body pressure to those Javelin Horsemen. I'm going to get my own Javelin Horsemen around and start to throw some Javelins at the Mammoth. Of course, just range damage in general going to be quite good there, but let's get back in on Change-adryan with his Severed Claw here. Yeah, I think he's already popped maybe one heal on them, not really sure, but Colossal Strike, Feint, and Riposte makes his stats absolutely ridiculous. He's got just huge melee defense in particular. Yeah, plus decent weapon strength, especially for an elf. Over 500 base weapon strength with that extra anti-large, so even if he does end up taking a little bit of damage, because I brought him as the Changeling, I get the Mark of Asuryan just as is, so that may or may not come into play here. We'll see if he ends up taking that much damage, but right now, we're able to push back this Famir, the Skinwolf Werekin. He is going to disengage and wisely, again, go the other way. But let's see. Got my Marauder Horseman kind of in a pretty good, effective position here where I can try and support. But the rest of the army is basically done. The Cultist, at least, is running around with a pretty full bag of HP. He can keep casting spells and doing his thing, but definitely not out of the woods yet. Tactical Itch starting to rally his forces back together here. I'm going to throw a little fireball. And let's see, how much has the... Oh yeah, we've got already a pretty good amount of spell mastery, up to close to 15%, with the extra power reserves in particular being quite nice. I don't know, I don't see the Tzeentch Shrine being brought that often, because I think a lot of people still associate it with its release state, which was largely useless. But I think it's a pretty good ad right now, especially against, well, Norsca can take Javelins, which would punish you pretty heavily, but in a build like this, I feel like could have just maybe just kept him in the back if Javelins were present, infantry Javelins, just because they're so short range that I can kind of keep him at a distance to still cast spells and get some benefit from that. But anyway, this is the synergy I was looking for. We're going to get that Warp Flame, we're going to get Change-adryan in a surround with Severed Claw against the Mammoth, and able to push him away from the point. He does cast a pretty nice Final Transmutation Overcast there, which is actually going to get Change-adryan pretty low. Is it enough to activate the Mark of Asuryan? Not quite yet. Of course, he doesn't have any way of healing himself on this roster, but I'm going to just stick to the point for the time being, and Tactical Itch wants to pick apart the rest of my army. I guess I'm okay with that at this point. Yeah, I mean, I do have an infinite charge on these heals, so depending on how long this takes, I can definitely sustain the Severed Claw through whatever is left. And speaking of whatever is left, there's a few Famir here being led by their noble. And some Marauder Horsemen. Ooh, they look like they were going to maybe hammer and anvil my Marauders right there, but decided to just pull up, throw Javelins at the Severed Claw instead. I do have the one little very tattered unit of Marauder Horsemen sitting here. But yeah, we'll let the barrier eat a little bit of this. It's not going to do too much damage. And there's the Captain of the Phoenix Guard ability being used on the Severed Claw. Absolutely ultra cursed. It's going to give some good healing, and that extra physical resistance as well during that uptime is nice if they were actually in combat against something that didn't have magic damage, like these Famir. But there you go. It's mostly take it for the heal, right? Some Marauders will be used to chase some weakened routing units there, try and clean up some more models for the Cultist. Keep charging up. Yeah, still only like 15% spell mastery, so I guess neither of us had super high model count armies. A lot of like missile cavalry and whatnot. So there we go. There's Searing Doom from the Metal Mammoth, and yeah, pretty much everything except my 2 characters and the Severed Claw are broken. Changeling, Change-adryan, still not low enough to be doing the Mark of Asuryan, but let's see. It's going to get charged by the Werekin, who has just a terrible matchup against him, being weak to fire damage, and also not the best melee defense in the world. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and pop a Cascading Fire Cloak, get that extra weakness to fire on there, and let Change-adryan just go to town. Very, very bad day to be that particular Werekin. Was there even a couple of javelins left? Yeah, some Marauder Horsemen, seeing if they can apply anything, but army losses will kick, and that's going to be, yeah, victory. So, how viable is this actually? I don't know. I'm mostly just having fun here, but it is definitely, like, there's something to it, right? There's some good synergies here. These elite halberds that are already pretty tough to kill for a lot of factions, getting that extra healing, it's really nice, actually. Changeling himself got some pretty respectable value, also fighting in melee. I think the Change-adryan transformation costs like 1,800, so we'll check that as well. But yeah, came pretty close to paying for himself on raw value, and then of course healing the aspiring champs. The Cultist, underrated honestly for Tzeentch, gives you Lore of Fire, and yeah, Lore of Fire is just great. It's always been great, and it probably always will be great. Marauder Horseman of Tzeentch also fantastic in this type of situation, can synergize well. Metal Mammoth, despite getting a lot of resources poured into him, still gets 21,000 damage dealt and almost 2,400 gold value, which is a testament to its strength. I do think you'll be seeing a lot of Metal Mammoths in a lot of matchups for Norsca. Likewise, his Marauder Horseman I was able to counter relatively well. I mean, he's still got pretty good value on a few of them, and then the Famir it's an interesting choice that kind of got kited around, run around the battlefield a little bit, but yeah, I can sort of see what he was going for there with the extra missile resistance from the Famir Noble and the Famir Warriors, right? Since Tzeentch is sort of the Chaos Missile faction, it would make sense that you might want some missile-resistant troops. Definitely, I see the line of thinking there. But yeah, let's talk more about new transformations for the Changeling, because of course whenever we get new characters in game, that always means that the Changeling gets new options. So you have this very helpful little search form here. So yeah, 1,800 base cost, and of course when you're taking the Changeling, you basically don't take anything on him, you just take the transformation. So 1,800 for Change-adryan's pretty solid. You do get, as mentioned, the Mark of Asuryan, so if someone does manage to snipe him, relatively low HP Lord in that way, he will get some benefit of that really powerful passive drain. Of course, the infantry heal is just fantastic, and he has his own combat buffs, which make him actually very, very good in combat, especially for an infantry character. Base 30% physical resistance as well, which is really nice, and yeah, overall, really, really good character. So the fire damage, of course, we talked about, synergize as well, the heal. There's quite a bit going on there from a synergies perspective. But the other one I want to call attention to is the Mask. Mask is a great character. If you've seen my other videos, you'll know that as well. 1,800 base cost on him. Also, he's got really good melee defense, a little bit more HP than Change-adryan, and he's got the AoE drain of the Dance of Dreaming. Yeah, do you have other ways of getting access to Mortis engines? Yes. And depending on the tournament rule set, you might not be able to take this and another one, like, for example, the Mutalith Vortex Beast is another one that has, you know, kind of a direct damage aura, right? So, yeah. Yeah, you might not be able to take both of these, but the fact that the mask is so fast, right, counts as infantry size, super, super fast, and, you know, small target as opposed to the Mutilith Vortex Beast, which is not a lot of those things. I mean, technically it has decent speed, I guess, but it's kind of a cumbersome monster and giant target, certainly, for enemy missiles, so the mask is going to be better in that way. The mask also is a pretty decent combat character overall. I say pretty decent. Very, very decent for sure. Anti-infantry, you've got devastating flanker, physical resistance, and that melee defense. Plus, of course, you get slippery. And yeah, you get the dances, so quite survivable in many ways. A little bit of low armor, and you may be vulnerable to something like Spirit Leech spam. But definitely an option that you should consider when taking Tzeentch as well, because the mask is really, really fun. The rest of the characters, most of them are mount reliant. I mean, I guess you could take T'Challa as well, but I do think the mask right now is just better than T'Challa. She has a little bit more HP, a little bit more combat stats, but you don't get that AoE drain, which is so, so strong. And yeah, she also counts as large, whereas mask does not, which I think overall is actually a benefit for Lords, considering all the anti-large in-game these days. And then, yeah, both Sail, Steer Car, some of the other, like, I guess you could take them, but you don't get the items. You do get Nightmaw, at least with Sail, but, you're paying for the spells also, like with any spellcaster, so it's not nearly cost-efficient enough to be viable. Yeah. Steer Car is also just on foot, which is painful. I mean, he's got decent stats all the way around, and you get some other stuff, but it's not... I mean, he's just going to be a Foot Lord without any passive healing, so it's not ideal. And I think that's basically everything. I don't know if there's really a lot of other forms worth talking about, but yeah, nice to get some new options for Tzeentch. Change-adryan and the mask in particular are definitely very fun, and I would encourage you Tzeentch players out there, give it a shot, you know, have some fun. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.